Hey everybody. As you probably know, in May of 2015, Pope Francis released his second encyclical called Laudato Si, subtitled Care for Our Common Home. And in that encyclical, he designated September 1 to be a World Day of Prayer for care for our common home, care for the earth. And this year, 2016, on September 1, on that day of prayer for care for our common home, Pope Francis actually gave us two new works of mercy. He recommended them to Christian people throughout the world. So here are the two he gave us. As a spiritual work of mercy, he said, care for our common home calls for grateful contemplation of God's world, which allows us to discover in each thing a teaching which God wishes to hand on to us. And then he went on to say, as a corporal work of mercy, care for our common home requires daily, simple gestures which break with the logic of violence, exploitation, and selfishness, and makes itself felt in every action that seeks to build a better world. Practically speaking, what do these mean? When he says, as a spiritual work of mercy, care for our common home causes for grateful contemplation for God's world. Well, in my life, I think it means two things when it comes to this as a spiritual work of mercy. First, I think it's an invitation to slow down and just notice and be grateful for the beauty of the world that we live in. I know with my busy dashing about and doing things, sometimes I completely miss and forget about the very beauty of the valley in which we live. Only when there's a certain cloud formation or the sunset is rather spectacular, the light breaks through it a specific way, do I maybe go, wow, that's beautiful. But I think grateful contemplation for God's world calls us to slow down and notice it. It's hard to be grateful if you don't notice the world around you, whether it's the intricacies of a spider web or the beauty of a flower or whatever it is. It invites us to slow down, to appreciate the world in which we live. And secondly, I think it invites us to go even a little beyond what we may normally do. I mean, who among us has not gone out to the beauty of Yosemite or been before the vastness of the ocean or seen the beauty of the Milky Way on a perfect night and not gone, wow, and just been absolutely stunned by the beauty of creation? I think Pope Francis invites us to take that a step further beyond wow and just being stunned by creation, to also then recognize it as a gift and to thank God for the beauty of the ocean you are before, of the Yosemite that you're looking at, of the stars that dazzle you, to actually be grateful for it. Because in being grateful for the gift that we have, we will then take care of that gift a little bit better. The way I'm sort of seeing is that as surely as I would think to take a photo of it and put it on Facebook or on social media for other people to enjoy, I should be that certain to stop and be grateful for the beauty of God's creation around me as well. And then second, the corporal work of mercy, requiring simple daily gestures that care for the earth, that makes itself feel in every action, that speaks to build a better world. I think we in California have a great leg up on that one because we're already so conscious about exactly what the Holy Father's talking about, whether that's, recycling or conserving water or being careful with how we use fuel or turning off lights when we leave a room. All those little gestures, that's what the Holy Father's talking about. Simple care for our common home, care for the earth, by being respectful of our use of the resources that the earth offers us. So I find that really, really interesting that the Holy Father decided, here's two more corporal works of mercy, or corporal work of mercy and a spiritual work of mercy. As one commentator said, what the Holy Father did is he gave us modern works of mercy for a modern age. The 14 works of mercy, 7 spiritual, 7 corporal, that we've been looking at during our series, is not an exhaustive list. It's a suggestive list. And I think we as God's people are called to be alert to the times and make sure that the way we perform works of mercy fit the day and age in which we live. There may even be new works of mercy that we need to incorporate into our lives. So I wanted to spend the rest of this video sharing with you some different sort of takes on works of mercy that I've picked up from brochures or from books or from people I've talked with, or just some that have come to my own mind as I've been celebrating this Jubilee Year of Mercy. For example, not abandoning the elderly. You'd be surprised that it's not already one of the corporal works of mercy, but I think that's a very wise one. Those who are aging, especially if they're limited in mobility, they really run the risk of feeling very much alone and forgotten And in a world where our worth is measured by what we do, they can come to feel very worthless and unloved. To not abandon the elderly is a tremendous work of mercy, to be with them in their suffering, in their pain, in their anguish around the value of their own life. And I'm not talking about just the one time at Christmas, stop by and sing some Christmas carols. I'm talking about a regular presence to them so that they know they're an important part of our lives, and not abandoning the elderly. Visiting elderly neighbors or the elderly in convalescent homes can be a tremendous work of mercy. Another one, forming one's children in the faith. This may go along with sort of bringing education to people, but in particular, to form children in the faith, I think, is so incredibly important. Especially today, in our world today, there are so many competing philosophies and theologies and opportunities and possible understandings of what it is to be a human person, that children can get very lost in what society is saying about human beings and who we are. We know that teen stress and depression is at an all-time high. And part of that, I think, comes from their struggle to figure out who they are in a world that is wide open to being whatever. Our faith gives us some very firm and wonderful, grounded, God-given answers to questions about who we are as people and the value we have and the difference we make in a world. And I think forming children in faith gives them a very firm foundation on which to build a life, a faith-filled life, a powerful life, and a holy life. So here's another one, don't judge. Of course, we all know the scripture admonition against judging, but here's what I'm thinking of in particular. Merciful people don't say to people in a difficult situation, you did this to yourself, or you deserve this. It's true. Maybe you're visiting someone who's put themselves in a bad situation. They made bad decisions. Maybe they did not give up smoking. Maybe they kept eating when they shouldn't have. Maybe they didn't go to the doctor. Maybe they didn't take their medication. But you know what? As merciful people, we're not there to tell them, you should have done something different. We're there to be with them in their struggle and in their sorrow and in their pain. Let God sort out what they did or what they did not do. Our role is to be the compassionate face of Christ. I also love this one. Dare to really care. Dare to really care. Given the fast-paced nature of our lives, it can be very simple to sort of say to someone, how are you doing? And when they respond with something like, oh, my children are giving me a hard time, to be very brief with them. It's something like, oh, I know how it is. Well, boys will be boys, and on we go. Daring to really care challenges us to take what they say seriously and enter into their suffering, into their difficulty. And the way I find you can do that is by daring to ask the next question. So for example, how are you doing? Oh, my boys are driving me crazy. I just don't know what to do with them. Instead of saying, well, boys will be boys, and being on your way to say, oh, really? What are they doing? And then to hear the answer to that. And then to maybe go on with, well, why do you think they're doing that? To ask the next question. It's hard because it takes time. It puts the other person before ourselves and our schedules and our agendas. And it calls us to really be conscious and attentive, listening to what they tell us. You may not have an answer for what they say, but just the fact that you show you really care is an act of mercy that many, many people need in their life. Avoid gossip. That's a tough one, I know. It's an act of mercy to refrain from gossip because gossip is, in a very real sense, an act of violence against someone's character. But Pope Francis once said this about gossip. He said, "It is so terrible to gossip. At first it may seem like a nice thing, even amusing, like enjoying a candy. But in the end it fills the heart with bitterness and even poisons us." So often gossip, unfortunately, goes to hurt someone who's already injured. So we want to avoid that. And it's hard, especially when those around you start to engage in it. We as a merciful people need to not engage in it, even step back from it, or challenge others to quit gossiping as well. Here's one I think that's very relevant to the time we live in. Be gentle with what you post on social media. As I look at social media in this day and age, so often, so many things are put up there that are actually nasty and cruel and insulting and making fun of other people, whether they're political figures, public figures, or situations. People try to take very complicated situations and topics and issues and boil them down into one or two lines that are basically saying, if you don't believe this way, you're stupid. They're not merciful ways, they're not kind ways to be in communication with other people. I think we need to be very careful that what we put up isn't funny at the expense of another person, isn't insulting to another person. We need to be merciful. Social media is amazing. It gives each and every one of us the ability to reach an audience larger than any of us could have ever reached in our lives before. But I also think there's a responsibility to go with that. What do we want to reach that larger audience with on your Facebook page, on your Snapchat account, on your Twitter account? How do you want people to know you? What sort of mercy, what sort of Christian value do you want to project in your social media? We need to be gentle with what we post. This one's challenging as well. Don't turn away. When you're faced with an opportunity to be merciful to someone, it can be easy to turn away, either because maybe they are someone who are not appealing to you visually, or maybe because it's someone in a state or in a situation where you think someone else could help them better. But the fact of the matter is, you are the one there at that moment, and that's not by accident. You're the one there to bring mercy in that moment, and that's by design. I mean, I think we can reasonably say that if any of us were nearby and someone was on the ground hurt and in pain and the paramedics were coming, we wouldn't say to them, oh, the paramedics are coming and I'm going to walk away. We would be with them until someone more competent in medical care might arrive, but we would stay with them. If there is someone who you're present to who maybe needs help more than you can give them, get them to that help. Accompany them with that help. May even be with them as they receive that help, so that they're not alone in that situation. And in terms of someone who may not be particularly appealing to you visually or in other ways, if you turn away in a very real way, you turn away from Christ himself, who said that whatever we do to our brother or sister, the least of these, we do it to him. Don't turn away. Cultivate a little kindness. You know, this is something I think that's fallen on some hard times in our world this day, but there's an opportunity to be merciful in many small ways every day. And no act of mercy, no matter how insignificant, is wasted. It could be as simple as allowing someone to merge in traffic ahead of you. It could be simply calling a grieving friend or a lonely neighbor. It could be holding a door for someone. It could even be a smile. Saint Mother Teresa once said that smiling at someone is an act of mercy. I know stories of people who had actually contemplated their own suicide, were on their way home to do that, and a stranger smiled at them. No exchange of words, just a smile, and it made them realize that life was worth living and they did not kill themselves. It's that simple. Recently on Facebook, a lot of people have been copying and pasting this as their status, and this is part of it. I love this. It says, while much of America seems to be getting more and more divisive, I'm going to be holding doors for strangers, letting people cut in front of me in traffic, greeting all I meet, exercising patience with others, and smiling at strangers. I'll do this as often as I have the opportunity. I will not stand idly by and let children live in a world where unconditional love is invisible and being rude is acceptable. Sometimes a smile or a word of encouragement can change someone's entire day, if not their entire life. And two more for you. Accept mercy from others. You know, it takes a lot of humility to admit that we too need mercy from other people, to let others know that we are hurting, that we are struggling, that we have weaknesses. But when we do, we invite them, we give them the opportunity to share in God's divine love by bringing mercy to us. And we end up humbler, more kind, more gentle, and I really think more grateful as we experience in a new way God's mercy through others. And finally, pray for mercy. I know one of the corporal works of mercy is to pray unceasingly, but specifically to pray for mercy for mercy for those that you struggle with, for mercy for family, for friends, for mercy for your community, for mercy for the entire world. We know that the world is a hard place and seems to be getting harder and darker each day. And to pray for mercy, to keep it alive in our world and in ourselves, is so very, very important. We know that one of the Beatitudes Jesus taught us in Matthew's Gospel is, "Blessed are the merciful, for they will obtain mercy." As we go forth and continue to discover new acts of mercy, as well as the traditional acts of mercy to share with the world, we will become more merciful like the Father, whose love we seek to share with all we meet.